Welcome into the Billikens Hub postgame, ladies and gentlemen, and Eric Sontag is shaking his head because he cannot believe what we saw, and I severely doubt he's the last person who's going to put it that way. I'm Matthew Rocchio. Again, welcome into Sports Hub STL's postgame show of the Billikens right after things went final with a 57-56 win over Davidson. This is the Billikens Hub postgame. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Eric Sontag. Jump into the comments. Let's get the conversation going. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of things to say about this game. Let's dive into some of the big things, Eric. Right now, right off the bat, of course, it's such a crazy game. I'm going to need your instant reaction, your thoughts on the Billikens coming back and surviving, considering the nature of that last shot from the Wildcats.
What the hell just happened? Like I had all these notes written, based on a Billiken loss. I just had to tore them up. We're just going to roll with it. The Billikens had no business winning that game. I don't know how the hell they did it, but here's what happens. We talk a lot about gambling on my show on Domesticated Gamblers. The Sharps were on this one. 72% of the bets were on SLU. 90% of the money was on SLU. The Sharps knew. So that's the way this happens sometimes. Crazy
it was
things happen.
1.5. Of course, a 1 on a 1.5 line. Never doubt Vegas, ladies and gentlemen. They somehow, even just like the Billikens, they always seem to pull it out somehow.
Yeah, and I found it interesting, Rock, that like the Billikens all year, what they do well is they shoot two-pointers extremely well. They're fourth in the country in 2-point percentage. In the first half, it was terrible. Second half, better. They still finished well below their season average. They finished 50% from two-point range, typically at 59%. But I think it's fitting. The last bucket of the game is Avila getting to the rim and getting a shot in off the glass. Billikens couldn't do anything in the first half, in particular inside. Davidson was really clogging up the lane, and the Bills weren't getting any easy layups. And Robbie did a great job getting inside in the second half, and that really ended up being the difference in the game.
Let's get to some comments right off the bat and kick off this Billikens Hub postgame. Again, the Billikens with a huge, unlikely after that start and, chunks of that second half, 57-56 win over Davidson. Dan Ulrich joins us, or Ulrich, I apologize, sir. What a great win by the Billikens. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar going to the rack with the big game winning bucket. Barch badness, here we come. And how about that bucket too? The game-winning bucket from Robbie Avila. He does it in true Robbie Avila fashion, which is he's falling down. It's not the most graceful thing in the world, but the bottom line is he hits the shot and you walk away with the W.
And that's this team, right? It is not pretty. It's a grind. You got all these players missing. You basically have no bench. McCautry was okay tonight, but you got essentially nothing from Picard and from the rest of the bench. This team, we've seen this before, though. The UMass game, they look dead, and they're able to just stick with it and keep fighting and come back and win it. Even the George Mason game, which they lost in overtime, that game was over too, and the Bills were able to come back and force overtime. I'm just really, really impressed. I personally was questioning this team's toughness level earlier in the season. I think the VCU game that they won back at Chaffetz kind of flipped the switch because they were getting punked at halftime in that game where they're getting killed on the offensive glass, and then they were able to turn that game around and win it. I know it's been a tough stretch since then, but this team has been beat up. They're sticking with it, and now this double bye, it is very much in play. Now in fourth place all by themselves at 9-6 in the league. You got 3 games left with Loyola, Dayton, and Duquesne. If they just win 2 of those, I would say it's more than likely they get the double bye. So this game is just absolutely massive.
Yeah, St. Joseph does have a very easy schedule closing out their conference play, which makes it a little tough for you to completely sit on that one because they host the Bonnies, they're at Fordham, they host Rhode Island, and they're at LaSalle.
Yeah,
not a tough stretch there for the Hawks. They could definitely keep on pushing things here. Will Sutton says, never a doubt. And Will, I love you. You've been one of the most consistent commenters ever since we launched Sports Hub STL 8 days ago. Feels so crazy that it's only been 8 days with everything we've done already. But Will, you're a liar on that one. You doubted that game about 9 different times, and for good reason. Let's go as we're going to keep hitting some of these texts. So a way to go on the defense. Yeah, they really have become a defensive team. And I think that's been really shocking to a lot of people. I don't know if there's a single person out there who can confidently say that they expected the Billikens to be a defensive, first or a defense heavy team this season. And again, I'll call you a liar if you say that as well. But Shirts said it from the get-go. They weren't going to be an elite offensive team, and they've turned around and they've been in above average. I won't call them elite because they don't force turnovers and they can't flip games by turning those turnovers into points very easily, because in both cases they lack the athleticism to do so. And Shirts has been very open about that. But they are decidedly an above average defense with everything that they're able to do in games. So I'm with Will Sutton on that one. Way to go, defense. Ace, 65-83. Rob, let's go Billikens. I'll agree with you that one. Cronky Hater, also so consistent over the last 8 days. Crazy win. Absolutely crazy win. In fact, let's dive into a couple of these ones. Keep hitting us with your comments. We will be getting to them throughout the chat, but I want everyone to kind of see just how insane this game really was for the Billikens. I'm going to throw up here our game notes from here. You can see it there. Down 27-18 at half while shooting 27 from the field and 26.7 from deep. Obviously, that's pretty bad. At the half, only 3 Billikens had scored the ball to get them to those 18 points. 14 from Isaiah Swope. Robbie Avila had 2, and Amari McCautry, despite an up and down game, did have some solid play, including 2 in the first half. They tied the game at 33 with a 15-6 run over the first 4 minutes or so of the second half. Avila was a big part of that. He had another double-digit half and a comeback effort, scoring 17 in the second half, and of course, including the game winner, finishes with 19-7-2, and then everything goes immediately bad. You get outscored again. Davidson goes on a big 18-5 run. Gibson finally gets involved. They keep turning the ball over. It looks like you're not going to win this game, and then bam, 5:30 left. You're down by 9. Again, the same deficit it was at half. You go on a 17-5 run to make it a 1-point game. And then we've already talked about the game winner from Robbie Avila. And the last point, I put it there in red, facing another A10 Player of the Year candidate, just like Sebastian Thomas of Rhode Island. The Billikens held Reed Bailey to 14-5-2. He got most of that in the second half. And honestly, if he doesn't get slowed down in the first half by Kalu Anya early and often, that game might have been completely out of reach at halftime. So really, just a lot of big moments, a lot of big plays by a lot of players throughout this game tonight.
Yeah, you nailed it too. How much better the defense has been of late. The rebounding for the second straight game, Bills did a really good job on the glass. Won the rebounding edge 38-32. Won on the offensive glass as well, 9-7. And second chance points, Bills 12, Davidson 6. Huge difference in the game in a 1-point game. The Bills' largest lead in this game was 1. I'm pretty sure they led by 1 3 separate times. I'm just stunned by this, and I feel like you just cannot underestimate how big this is for their prospects of getting it. And this makes this game bigger even against Loyola on Saturday is massive. SLU just a half game behind them now. I do agree with you. Like, there's no guarantee you get the double bye even if you win 2 out of 3, but it's all on the table now, and this team's got to just be riding high right now.
Yeah, and I'm kind of riding high with them right now because it really has been an impressive run for the Billikens as of late. Let's get to a couple more of these texts here. Of course, we're going to have a special guest, Bob Ramsey, who will be joining us from courtside, or it might be mezzanine level. With the A10 arenas, you never can tell where the away broadcast is. So he could be joining us courtside. He could be mezzanine level. He could have meandered down from mezzanine level to courtside in the meantime. So he'll be joining us most likely after he talks to Josh Shirts here on the Billikens Hub postgame. Todd Bono, really dig all these postgame shows. Hope SHSTL is successful. That's Sports Hub STL. And you can help us be successful. First of all, support our sponsors. We got one in that corner. There it is. I did it right this time. Hot Shots Sports Bar and Grill, home of St. Louis sports fans since 1990. You can always check out Hot Shots. In fact, it's a great time to check out Hot Shots. You should have checked them out this past Saturday when we had 5 games running. This Saturday, got 5 games running again. So check out Hot Shots. Check out the Blues game there. Check out the City games there. They are the best. And in fact, while we're talking about Hot Shots, you guys just keep leading me into this. I mean, this show is running so smoothly because the fans are running it that way. Let's talk about Sports Hub STL kickoff party coming up on Thursday, February 27th. Just 2 days. Hot Shots on Limburg and Lime. Brand spanking new Hot Shots for Sports Hub STL fans to break in. Blues at Capitals watch party. You can meet the Sports Hub STL team, win tickets, Hub merch, and more. And of course, throughout that Saturday, make sure you're checking out all our post games right here on Sports Hub STL. And I want to keep us running with some of these comments here. Cronky Hater, with no bench, they're going to need the double bye. No doubt about that. The conference tournament slates are absolutely hellacious. And that's another one that's going to be tough. Speaking of the bench, I did a piece on Sports Hub STL that was up the Monday we launched, talking about the struggles of the bench. And then, of course, you get the big game just this past week for the Billikens, obviously, where the bench has a huge moment. Amari McCautry has some big moments. And again, he wasn't consistent tonight against Davidson like he was against Rhode Island. But anytime you can get, 15, 20 minutes from one of these bench guys and get 6 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, a block. And again, those 2 turnovers were problematic, but they came out in the wash from the good play. If you can just get anything, all the Billikens have needed this entire year is one other player to join the big three in hitting a shot or having a moment in the game. Gibson Jimerson did not have a good game. We threw it up a little bit early. Only 8 points on 13 shots. But if you're watching the game, that 3-pointer he hits late in the second half, that completely changes the momentum of the game and puts him right back in it to win that game. And of course, Isaiah Swope has another fantastic game. He had been struggling over the last 5 or 6 games in conference play. He was the only reason that they're in that game in the first half, considering he had 14 of their 18 points. And so you're right, Cronky Hater. With no bench, they're going to need the double bye because – and listen, that's why everyone's talking about the double bye. You hear SEC fans, Missouri fans are talking a lot about the double bye because every team wants it. Conference schedules are hellacious. Just be happy that you're not in the Sun Belt, or I guess if you're a good team, you should be happy you aren't in the Sun Belt. Have you seen the Sun Belts, how they do their conference tournament?
It's like if you're the lower seed, you have to win like 6 or 7 games in a row or something.
It literally starts off and it just goes like this. Yeah. You have to play every game if you're the lowest seeds. So I mean that one, if you want to be a Sun Belt team, if you can finish top 4. But my point is, everyone wants double buys for that reason. No one wants to be playing back to back for 4 days straight instead of just the normal 3 that you kind of
have. And that's what I think Schertz has realized with the bench. Like, he needs to have a 6th guy that he can trust, and I think it's pretty apparent that that's McCautry. There's no way this team's going to win 3 games in 3 days, let alone 4 games in 4 days, if they're just running essentially 5 deep and there's 3 guys coming in just to essentially save the starters minutes. I think we saw it on Saturday in the Rhode Island game. He's letting McCautry in particular play through some mistakes and be like, okay, and so he got 24 minutes tonight. 7 rebounds is huge. He was a huge contributor in helping the Billikens win in that department. And that's what I think this team is going to have to win, some low-scoring games, and they play a lot of low-scoring games. The under cashed easily tonight. The under is now 20-6 this season for the Billikens in their games against D1 opponents. Just start betting it blindly. I did it for a while, then we had a couple overs, and I went off it for a bit, but I think they're coming back on it. This is also only the 2nd game that SLU has won this season when they're a dog. They're now 2-7 straight up as an underdog. Nice. They won the VCU game at Chaffetz and then this game tonight. And just this first time they won back-to-back games in over a month when they beat Richmond and LaSalle. So, man, this win just came from out of nowhere, and I'm just so fired up about it.
Dan comes into the comment line. Such a fun team to watch, and love how Coach Schertz doesn't mince words and the transparency from the program. I agree with Dan. Obviously, if you follow me on Twitter, you would know that I agree very much with those statements from Dan, because Josh Schertz gives us absolute gold, and that's why he's so much fun to talk to. And I hope at least that we as the media are conveying to the fans, one, the information that Josh Schertz is so kind to actually share with us. And I hope we're translating it in a way that, first of all, because a lot of times Schertz says stuff that I don't understand and I have to go look up or I have to ask him to clarify. So I'm hoping we're transferring it, because honestly, it's made me more interested in this team from a media perspective. And I hope that is spooling over to the fans, because it has been really fun to watch. And hopefully we have some interviews coming up with Schertz and the most animated coach on the bench for the Billikens, Zach Bovair. Hopefully we have some pieces coming up with them, because they are incredibly interesting to talk to if you love the Billikens and if you love basketball.
Yeah, and this program needs someone like Schertz, I think, too. Someone that's relatable, that can create a lot of buzz. Because I've been a Billiken fan my entire life. 42 years old. My dad went to school there. I went to school there. Graduated in 2004. And you see these programs like Xavier. I see your Creighton poster on the wall back there. Marquette. These private Jesuit schools, there is no reason St. Louis should not be up in that level with those teams. So I think this is the kind of guy everywhere he goes, he has won, and he plays a fun brand of basketball. He's just up against it with the deck stacked against him this year with how many, defections from the program and injuries, and got this poor Thames kid. But I'm really optimistic long term about the future of this program. I hope they can make a run in the conference tournament next month, but if they don't, I still think this is the right guy for the job. He's just a brilliant, brilliant dude, and I think we're really lucky to have him.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I've run into some not so optimistic Billikens fans, particularly not just about the struggles this season, but combination of the struggles this season. I think some negativity from a previous regime, and the realities of the transfer in the NIL world being that things can be up in the air. Just really negative about the state of next year's roster, which is kind of surprising to me because talking to Josh Schertz, they already know that they want to add a bunch of shooting in the spring through the transfer window. They've signed a pretty good class that they're still building on. So I'm not sure why there's some negativity. I don't see. Obviously, you never know why people transfer. So there probably will be one transfer that we just don't see coming. But I don't know what it is because we don't see it coming. SJ on the chat. Sometimes a team needs a signature win. This was it for SLU. Hopefully the team can carry this momentum into March and make the dance. I think there's been a lot of moments like this for SLU. So I'm hard pressed to agree with you there, mainly because VCU is a top 35 Ken Pom team right now, and they beat them after getting slaughtered by them 2 weeks beforehand. And so that's, I think it's hard to knock that off as the signature win for the Billikens. And they have had comeback wins against teams that they are more talented than, which is how I would describe this Davidson matchup. And so I wouldn't say it's a signature win. I would say it's a unbelievably clutch win considering where they put themselves after the first half and how close the race is going to be for the double bye.
Yeah, total agreement for me. Davidson, this was a game, even though Davidson was favored, SLU should have won this game. If you look at the Ken Pom data, Davidson has had the easiest conference schedule in the A10, and they were still only 6-8 in the league, now 6-9 in the league, and they're now 3-5 at home. The only teams they've beaten at home are Duquesne, Fordham, and Richmond, who all have losing records overall. The teams that have gone in there and beat Davidson in Davidson this year include George Washington, Loyola, and St. Joe's, who are those teams right around SLU in the A10 standings. So SLU, they really needed to take care of business tonight. I had a bad feeling about this game going into it, even though all the data really pointed me in SLU's direction. But I think there is really no reason that we cannot go into the Loyola game. SLU's going to be favored in that game, and we should expect a win. That game, when they played at Loyola, was tied with 4 minutes to go before Loyola hit a couple threes and pulled away. And then at that point, there's not much you can do. But, tied with 4 minutes to go, we've seen SLU have a lot of those games too, where they're not getting crushed. I think the only game they've really gotten crushed this year was at VCU, at least in the conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, in conference. Yeah, plenty of bad non-conference performances. But, this team's going to be favored on Saturday against Loyola, and you just got to go get it done.
Yeah, and they should have won that game. That's another conference game that they should have won that they let slip away. It's an away game, but that should be no excuse. That's another thing tonight. Making a comeback like that when you're away, and man, that they've had so many weird games. No free throws for the Billikens in the first half. No free throws for Davidson in the second half. Also, there was that potential over and back by Gibson on the game-winning play from Robbie, which I think some people are going to question. So if I'm a Davidson fan, I'm probably a little bit tweaked about the fact that the whistle never goes our way. Will Sutton back in the chat. Is McCautry J. Good 2.0?
Got a long way to go for that. J. Good's lighting it up right now in the NBA.
Yeah, but I mean, first of all, okay, this is people really box you in sometimes. He has the potential to be better than J. Good because J. Good was, 6, he has like the similar measurables except bigger. He's taller than J. Good probably by an inch. He's longer than J. Good probably by 2 inches. I think J. Good was 6'3" with a 6'9" wingspan. And I think Amari's 6'4" or 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan. So when you talk about it, and those are things that make Jordan an incredibly useful player. We talk about a guy who's made it to the NBA. He probably has more to work on as an offensive player. Jordan's ability to turn players with his shoulders, get downhill with the ball in his hands, I would probably say is at the same level. But Jordan, I think, despite not having a great 3-point shot, I think has better mechanics at this point in his career than what Amari has right now. And if you guys don't know, I'm a weird truther about Amari McCautry's shot. Watch it and count how many times it rotates, which is something Dennis Rodman used to do for shooters. And if you it's your shot's supposed to rotate. It makes it easier to give you a good bounce. Watch how many times the ball rotates when Amari McCautry shoots the ball. And that's why, and you will understand why I refer to him as the R.A. Dickey of the Billikens. So he has the athleticism to have the profile of a Jay Good. But I think his ceiling is higher than Jordan Goodwin's was, because he has uber athleticism, uber length. And if you can just tweak the parts about his shot and things like that, I think maybe he has a higher ceiling. But again, people are going to say I'm comparing to an NBA player. It's not what I'm doing, but when Schertz says he's the most talented player on the roster, him and Max Picard, that means something.
Yeah, and I like guards that can rebound, and that's one reason I love Goodwin. McCautry 7 boards tonight, tied with Robbie for the team lead. You mentioned the defense earlier, and I'm like that. I feel like it has been really good. I wanted to look at the numbers. How about this? This stuns me. In Ken Palm, in conference play, if you look at offensive efficiency, SLU is ranked 9th out of 15 teams of the A10. In defense, SLU is ranked 3rd.
Third, okay.
VCU and George Mason, and then SLU.
Yeah, they've been first. I think there's been a couple of weeks where they've been second, or maybe even first a couple times. So yeah, they've been a defensive team. It was funny. The conversation switched right around the turn of the year when conference play started. Like, oh, are we a good defensive team? And instead of being a good offensive team, which obviously is what everyone expected because of Josh Church's previous hits. And yeah, that's kind of how they win games now. And you can see it right there. They win a game, sub 60s. Billikens win 57-56. You're listening right here on the Billikens Hub postgame on Sports Hub STL. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Eric Sontag, and we will be joined shortly by our special guest contributor, Bob Ramsey, once he wraps things up from North Carolina. Let's go to Sandwich Man, who says, let's go Billies. I never really hear him called that, but yeah, we'll roll with it. Will Sutton, will Amari usurp Anya in the starting lineup soon? I'm glad you brought up Kalu Anya here, because I'm going to say absolutely the hell not. Because even though he didn't take a shot from the field, even though he shot 1 from 3 from the charity stripe, not what you want, only pulled down 3 rebounds and had 1 assist and 1 turnover, Kalu Anya, as I said in the open, saved this game with his defense on Reed Bailey. Bottom line, full stop. And maybe you're thinking in the future, could he usurp Anya in the starting lineup? Yes, because if you can put somebody who can defend with 7-foot length, who can also shoot threes, or at least has a willingness to shoot threes, which Amari has more than Kalu, because sometimes the threat of shooting threes will space a defense out, and that can change how your offense works. And so, yeah, you're not completely wrong, but with Anya's rebounding, again, the numbers weren't there, but with Anya's rebounding and defense, he's so incredibly important, and he really does make that starting 5 click. He's not the most glue guy on the team. That's Kobe Johnson, but it doesn't work without him tonight.
Yeah, and he's a physical presence, and he's not out there to score. He's there to rebound. Yeah, only 3 tonight. But yeah, the defense was just fantastic. Bailey, I don't know if people are aware. He's the top scorer in the A10.
Yeah,
and he's outstanding rebounding, assists. He kind of is the whole thing. A very good chance to be the player of the year. Maybe Davidson's not good enough quite to be player of the year, but definitely first team all conference guy.
He's in the conversation. The broadcast was talking about it when we brought it up. The question to A10 player of the year, because they were facing off against Sebastian again for Rhode Island. Reed Bailey was another name that Josh Schertz brought up as a candidate for A10 player of the year. Yeah, we have a poll going right now. Sorry about that, Eric. We have a poll going right now on the YouTube that you can chime in on. Will the Billikens secure a top 4 finish in the A10 and therefore a double bye in the A10 tournament right now? 60% of the poll says yes. 40% says no. Dan Ulrich says, come on, Eric. Don't say Jesuit. It's St. Louis. I don't think. I mean, I don't think there's not many places where that's a bad word in this city. I mean, come on now.
I mean, I got 8 years of Jesuit education. St. Louis U High, St. Louis U.
Stand somewhere and throw a rock, you'll hit an institution. I mean, what are you talking about here, Dan? Get Amari with Drew Hanlon to improve the shot. Yeah, there's a lot of those theories going around. Again, I'm weird about shooting form and things like that. I know Bob Ramsey, who'll be joining us later, is also big on the shooting form of Kalu Anya at the free throw line. He has theories about him. I have my theories about Amari McCautry. But yeah, I'd be down with that, Will Sutton. I'd be down with getting him some shooting help from Drew Hanlon. I mean, he really has changed the Billikens. I know we talked about this, but any kind of minutes from him, and you mentioned it early, and it's something that I've been talking about. People were harping on the lack of a bench use from Josh Schertz throughout the season. And my defense of that was you can find the moment where the player screwed up and he goes, I can't. Okay, no, we got it. Nope, they're done. And then they would never get back in the game. And I understood that. And so I have to give Josh Schertz a lot of credit for over the last couple games, specifically saying, we're going to get past the first turnover. I'm going to get them to that second or third shift. They're freshmen. I'm going to let them get acclimated to the game, and we're going to see what they can do. And in both cases, less so this game, but I would also say that the mistakes were very apparent in Amari's case tonight. They weren't necessarily turnovers, but I thought his shot selection through some of those stretches in the first half were extremely bad. There's the one where Robbie comes down and pumps the three, decides not to take the three, and he passes it to Amari, and Amari immediately jacks a three coming down the other way. And it's like,
right.
But if Robbie's passing this up, let's get into the offense. Let's run the offense. Or there's another one where he took some bad shots, but Robbie and Gibson were off the court. Fine, you're trying to make a play when there's no one else out there to do it. Fine. But Robbie and Gibson come back on, and then he takes like a falling away push shot in the paint with 17 seconds left on the shot clock. It's not your shot in that moment. This is your moment to be defense, rebounds, handle the ball a little bit.
Yeah, one part of my notes I did not delete was early on in the game. If you notice, there's about 13 minutes left in the first half, and Schertz brought in Warlick, Bakar, and McCautry all at the same time.
Yep.
And the first two possessions were two turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
The third possession was a missed shot. They're very easily at that point he could have gone, okay, this isn't going to work tonight. I'm going to go back to the starters, but he stuck with it. I mean, Bakar only got 3 minutes. He was kind of getting bullied around down there tonight in his few minutes on the floor. Just the emergence, like we talked about, the emergence of his sixth man is mandatory. Like, that is not an option for this team if they want to get where they want to be in the A-10 tournament. And McCautry's that dude. And man, I love that they're letting him play through mistakes because this kid's got all the talent in the world.
Yeah, he does. And again, we've heard Schertz multiple times. He calls them unicorns, him and Max Bakar. Max Bakar also got in today a little bit of an extended look for him as well. Dylan Warlick put in some good minutes as well. Neither of them scored, but we've seen a fight from them. And I think that's also something from Amari McCautry I think we need to say. He's diving for balls. He's going after loose stuff. He's playing hard defense. Those plays in between the mistakes also are going to affect Josh Schertz's decision-making on how much he sticks with them going forward. Tonight, it obviously was a big thing again. Billikens, 57-56 win over Davidson. Completely unlikely as Robbie Avila hits the game-winning shot with under 12 seconds left. I think it was about 4 seconds left to go when he actually hit it. Billikens stream back with an incredible 15-7 run over the last few minutes. Take him down. Will Sutton. Anya is frustrating, gets so close to the basket and doesn't finish strong or makes a poor pass. His defense is incredible. His numbers, I know he has moments that frustrate you, but his numbers in the paint are actually pretty good. Same thing how people think that the Billikens always get screwed over by three-point shooting by the other team. Actually, Stu Durando broke it down. They actually don't. They're pretty good against three-pointers, and their luck's pretty good as well. And so I see the issues with Anya people have, but he's just so useful to this team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, facts over feelings. I'm big on that. A lot of times look at the numbers and it tells you something that your feelings are not telling you. So, just a fantastic win. Again, the Bills led for 1 minute and 1 second tonight and somehow come out with a victory. Insane.
Unbelievable. On that stat, we will say goodnight to Eric. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. The host of Domesticated Gamblers right here on Sports Hub STL. You can check him out, as he says, 1.5 point spread, a 1-point game. Always follow Vegas, and you can do that by following our good friend Eric Sontag right here on Sports Hub STL. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Rock. It was awesome, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Billikens win 57-56, and we will bring in our special guest for today, and that is the voice of the Billikens. That is Bob Ramsey, live on the road with the Billikens from Davidson. Rammer, what a night. How about that game?
I liked what Eric said, facts over feelings. You know, the great Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull once sang, "I can make you feel, but I can't make you think."
I want
you to go look up that song.
All right, fine. Did you say Jethro Tull?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, just hey, I can't be on with you without some 50-year-old reference.
And I can't hold back the fact that when you Google Jethro Tull, the first picture is a very old man in what looks like a do-rag playing a flute. So just
yes.
That's
exactly right.
Okay, fair enough. Rammer, obviously, it was a crazy night for the Billikens. They're down by 9 early going into half, or they're down by more than that, and they get it to 9 to go into half. It's up and down. They tie things up at 33. Things fall apart. They're down again by 9 with 5.5 minutes remaining, and they're somehow able to eliminate it. Just your thoughts kind of as you were going through what had to be a roller coaster of a game.
Well, I might have just shut down the radio broadcast had it not been for my partner Earl Austin Jr., who said, "No, this is what we do now. They're not going to be worried. There's still time." And I won't say it kept me calm, but it kept me from giving up. And that's what this team does. They don't give up. Did they putz around in the first half and screw around in the second half with some dumb turnovers? Yes, to both. But their defense remained mostly solid. Actually, it remained mostly terrific with a handful of breakdowns. That's going to happen in the game, right? You're going to get breakdowns. And we talked to Coach Schertz in the postgame show about the job Amari McCautry did, on Reed Bailey. And you put a guard on the best player in the league who's a center, and McCautry and Kaluanya both did just an unbelievable job on the guy. 14 points on 14 shots and only 2 rebounds and 4 turnovers. That's just really remarkable. Really remarkable.
Yeah, we were just talking about the defensive performance that Kaluanya and company had on Reed Bailey. You know, back-to-back games, you're going up against a potential player of the year candidate, and it's different players that step up to shut him down. You have the trio of guards and wings that step up against Sebastian Thomas of Rhode Island last weekend, and then you have a lot of Kaluanya, but I know obviously anytime you have a game, Robbie Avila is chipping down on him, Kobe Johnson, Amari McCautry, probably Gibson a little bit in moments. We're probably chipping down on them on switches and pick and rolls and things right now. Bottom line is Kalu spearheaded an incredible effort from the defense, and that game's, I mean, it might have slipped away to 20 points if he's able to be a factor in that first half.
And finding different guys to contribute throughout the game. It was the Swope show in the first half, and then Avila was so huge in the second half, and obviously including the game-winning bucket. I want to go back and look at that, how many moves he had to put on and sort of make up. I mean, he's like a jazz trumpet guy, just making up stuff as he goes along. And I mean, it's the thing. I'm terrible at my Spanish, but that's the es lento pero aspastante. He's slow, and you say, well, look, he's moving here, and then he moves here, and then he moves here, and nobody can stop him. It's slow but crushing, and he crushed Davidson's soul tonight, no doubt about it.
Absolutely, he did. And I know at this point it's cliche to make the Jokic comparisons, but I can't help it because that falling down layup is it's just both these guys. They're not going to do it pretty. It's not going to be something you've seen before, conventional, but they're going to put the ball in the hoop and they're going to find a way to get from point A to point B and get the ball up there. And that's literally describes Robbie Avila's game in that final play to win it tonight. And how about Isaiah Swope? I mean, he's had the big 20-point punches every once in a while, but he hasn't been able to consistently find a rhythm in the conference game. And I think it would have been a huge disappointment, not just for fans. I think probably for him and the team, if he finally has another game and there's no one else there helping him out. So, I mean, he was huge in the first half. He was great in the second half, but obviously really big for him to get some help there in the second half and close this one out.
He hit 6 threes. He was 6 of 10
That's nuts.
From 3-point range, including the 3 that pulled the Billikens to within 1 late, which, you know, was as big as them all. But in the first half, without him, you got no shot in the game. You get blown out by 25 points. So he kept you in it, and then everybody else started to contribute as the game went on. You're 100% right.
We're live here on Sports Hub STL. Like and subscribe us here on YouTube. That way you'll be notified anytime we go live after games like this. And of all 5 sports right now, and we'll probably be adding the Battle Hawks as well. Anytime there's a live game, you can bet we're going to be going live here on Sports Hub STL. Jump in the comments. You have questions or comments for our special guest today, Bob Ramsey. Please get them into the YouTube comments. We also, again, we're running a YouTube poll as well. Vote it there. Will the Billikens secure a top 4 finish in the A10? Still trending upwards. We're up to 67% on a yes there.
Really?
Yes, people are feeling good about this one. But then again, I keep having to caution it. The St. Joe's schedule is very light, and the Dayton schedule isn't much harder.
Loyola's playing great, and Dayton's really good. That's what makes it fun, right? So as of this moment, the Billikens are in 3rd place all by themselves, a half a game behind Loyola and a half a game in front of Dayton. Dayton plays at Rhode Island tomorrow, and the Billikens play Loyola on Saturday.
St. Joseph's plays the Bonnies tomorrow, so
that'll
be another one to watch.
Yeah, so this is probably going to come down to the last game of the year, in the final stratification of who gets. You know, it's still 4 teams for 2 spots, because VCU and George Mason, they've got the first 2. Then it's those other 4 teams. 2 are going to get the double bye, and 2 are not, and it'll probably come down to the last game.
Yeah, and like you said, it helps St. Louis, and of course they have a chance to exact some revenge on Loyola Chicago for letting that one slip away in Chicago, and so that'll be a big game coming up here for the Billikens. Gibson Jimerson, I know that the numbers aren't big; it's a single-digit finish for him, but considering that he's 0 for 6 at halftime, I think it's hard for shooters to keep that mentality going when you've completely dried up and your team's down. And yet still,
that's because you and I think that because we can't shoot.
Exactly. And so
real
he doesn't
shooters
think
don't care.
You're right. And so he keeps on shooting, and finally, he got a couple to fall, including that one late, and that was just an absolutely huge 3 from Gibson. And it really was another good overall game from him. Pitched in 4 rebounds as well, got a steal that was big as well, took care of the ball. And again, when he did hit that 3, it was a big one.
And the play that set that up was a Warlick drive on the left side, a kick out up top. I can't remember if it was Kobe or Amari, and a quick pass to the wing where Jimerson was open. And it was that kind of attention to detail and ball movement that set it up, and then it's just a matter of make or miss.
Amari McCautry had another solid game for the Billikens. His time out there puts in 6 points on 7 rebounds. His shot selection wasn't great in the first half, but Josh Schertz kept going to him, giving him those shifts. That's now the second game in a row where we've really seen Schertz continue to give Amari McCautry and the bench some chances after they've made some mistakes. I've been really impressed by the pivot there. And again, they're making the mistakes early, but now they're contributing late in games, and they're being given the chance to, and it's changed the last 2 games.
Well, and Josh had to go to freshman because the 5 men playing the whole night was just not working. Yeah. It was the Atlantic 10 is too good, and if you get and once you get tired down the stretch, and that's why a couple of the close games late slipped away. Now you get some fresh blood on the floor, and more than that, with Amari playing 24 minutes, equaling a career high, now you're getting real minutes off the bench, and that's critical.
Yeah, and that's going to be big. Anytime we talked about it earlier, we had a couple chats going about how big the double bye is going to be because they're so light on the bench. Cronky Hater got in here earlier and was talking about that. Yeah, it's going to be so crucial just because it is so hectic. It's such a hellacious run there, and we were talking about it earlier with Eric too. It's not just the fact of getting bodies out there because you're tired and things like that. When you look at Amari McCautry, people were asking him if he's Jay Good 2.0. And actually, we were started talking about him being, he's 6'4", 7-foot wingspan. Every once in a while, he hits a three, even if we don't expect it. That profile. And then the profile of Max Picard, 6'11", springy, can pull down rebounds, can throw down an alley-oop in transition. Those are two profiles that the Billikens just don't really have anywhere else in the roster. So just getting different profiles out there, getting an Amari McCautry, who, because of the length, you could play 4 out and play as a small ball 4. Or, more important with Picard, he actually allows you to play a second big man with Robbie if the lineup allows, because unlike Killian, he can get out on the perimeter on defense. And so just getting those guys, it's not just the rest factor. It allows the coaching staff to actually get in their bag and do some creative things and scheme around and have options.
Yeah, exactly right. And they just didn't have it for really until February, and then started to say we've got to find a way to get more options and not be worn down late. And now those options aren't just keeping your starters fresh; they're contributing to where at the end of the game, on defense, Robbie's out, Kalu's out, because you trust those young guys to fill a role in those given moments, and that's big.
One thing I wanted to ask you about Rammer, because you obviously, you're in front of all these games. What do you think is at the base of just so many of these slow starts? Because I haven't got a chance to go back and watch the tape yet, but a lot of them have seemed to be, a failure of results despite a good process. But I think it's something that fans are starting to get really frustrated with as we look to, being able to go on a run in the A-10 tournament, and getting down by 15 in 3 straight games will be mighty hard to come back from. And so what do you think is at the root of these early game issues?
I'm not going to make something up because I don't know, Rock. Why do most teams have poor road records? Why is it hard on the road? I don't have an answer. If I had an answer, I'd be going to Chris May, director of athletics, and say, hire me, because I've got the answer. I don't. I wonder sometimes if you have to play psychologist, and I guess it's a team, so it's sociology when you're talking about, 13 guys, and you've got to figure a way to get that focus going. Coach told us in the radio postgame show that it was just stagnant offensively, not defensively, but offensively in the first half. And how do you have your team laser focused coming out at home, but not on the road? The road's different. It's not your gym. It's not your locker room. You've been traveling. No excuses, but the road is hard. And that's why road wins sometimes are twice as important as home wins. Now, they're not more important than home losses. Home losses are, you're hitting yourself in the head with a hammer. You gotta protect your home court. And then when you can find road wins, it's like scooping up gold off the road. It's the way college basketball is. I don't have an answer.
There you go. They found a little gold on the road tonight. They'll look to secure that very crucial home win, avoid that potentially backbreaking home loss against Loyola Chicago coming up on Saturday back at Chaifetz Arena. Before we let you go, Rammer, and close down this Billikens Hub postgame, any other takeaways from your time with Josh in the postgame?
He just talked a little bit about trusting players, and moreover, them trusting themselves, and the connectivity that wasn't there offensively in the first half, but it was there defensively almost the whole game, again with occasional breakdowns. But then they started to connect and trust each other on the offensive end. Scored 39 second half points. You score 39 each half, you're winning a bunch of games. They did it one half, and it was enough by 1 point tonight.
one final thing, because you talked about the defense there, and me and Eric talked about this earlier in the postgame. Your reaction had I told you in September that this Billiken team's defining factor would be defense, what would your reaction have been?
Shocked.
It's unbelievable, and I have to give a ton of credit, and because you always talk about defense being effort, and so more so than anything, I'll give credit to a lot of players, especially guys like Gibson, Isaiah, and Robbie, who are most known for their offense. And Robbie and Gibson have stepped up and played great defense. And Isaiah, I think his defense is one of the most underrated skills on the entire team. And so really just the team gritting down and becoming a defensively strong squad, that's been one of the most impressive developments of a team I've seen in the last few years.
And not to be offer too much hyperbole, but had they not accepted that challenge to do what it takes to defend as a group, then this would be a disaster of a season. You lose 2 starters and 2 other key rotation guys. You're down 4 guys, and you've got to rebuild your team and figure out who you are. And to their credit, most nights they do. We got 3 more regular season games left to see how it goes.
Like I said, Saturday evening, you'll be able to hear Bob Ramsey live on KMOX as they face off against Loyola Chicago. It is set for, is that a 4
3 o'clock?
3 o'clock tip-off, because I'm looking at a website that does stuff in Eastern. So a 3 p.m. tip-off at Chaffetz. You can hear it on KMOX with Bob Ramsey, the voice of the Billikens. Rammer, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a safe trip home.
Thanks, Rock. It's always a pleasure, and I'll talk to you Saturday.
Absolutely. There he is, Bob Ramsey, live from Belk Arena. We're going to close things out here on the Billikens Hub postgame, but before we do, I want to tell everyone one more time about our good friends at Hot Shots with our Hot Shots kickoff party coming up on Thursday, February 27th. Hot Shots on Lindbergh in Lime, Blues at Capitals watch party, meet the Sports Hub STL team, win tickets, Hub merch, and more. That's Hot Shot Sports Bar and Grill. All the games, all the time. Home of STL sports fans since 1990. And you're home for a great time on Thursday and a great place to watch the games coming up this weekend, because, again, on Sports Hub STL with a full slate of STL sports, we will have a full slate of STL sports post games right here on Sports Hub STL. I'm Matthew Rocchio for my guests, Eric Sontag and Bob Ramsey. This has been the Billikens Hub on Sports Hub STL. Have a great night, St. Louis.